So hopefully everybody can see my screen. You can't see me, but that's okay. So welcome. Thank you for joining me on this menopause masterclass, how to manage your symptoms naturally. So just a little bit about me. I know some of you, and I've met some of you before. I'm a nutritional therapist, and I specialize in female hormone health, particularly menopause. Because when I went through menopause almost 9 years ago now, the symptoms that I experienced, particularly brain fog, which I didn't know what it was at the time, ended up getting me fired from my previous career in marketing. So it was all very traumatic, and but actually led to a good thing because it enabled me to retrain in nutrition and try and help women not go through what I went through. And because when I went to see my doctor with my symptoms, because I'd previously had breast cancer, HRT wasn't an option for me. So I had to look at alternative options, and which led to me looking at nutrition and subsequently studying in it. So there is and has been over the last few years a lot of talk in the media about menopause. Profile has been risen dramatically by people like Davina, and I think that's really great. The only thing that isn't really talked about much is how important nutrition and lifestyle factors are for enabling you to feel good going through menopause, whether or not you're taking HRT. And there are many women like myself that can't take HRT. Um, Bear with me a second. I'm just admitting more people to the waiting room. So whether or not you're taking HRT or not, it's really important that you have the good pillars, the basics of nutrition in place. And for many of the clients that I've worked with, for many of the women I've worked with, this has been sufficient, making changes over a period of time to stop symptoms such as brain fog, hot flushes, disrupted sleep, anxiety, and there are many, many more. I think there's, at least 50 different symptoms, potential symptoms of menopause. They have been resolved. So I mainly work one-to-one with clients on a 12-week program, which is a personalized nutrition coaching called the Menopause Method. Um, and even for those clients that I've worked with that have been taking HRT but still weren't feeling quite right, after implementing some changes and going through the nutritional basics that I'm going to go through today, um, they've felt better and even had to, in some cases, reduce their dose of HRT too. So obviously, I'm going to give you an overview of the 5 key pillars that make a huge difference to how you're feeling. If you'd like to talk to me about your particular symptoms one-to-one, then just book in for a chat. Happy to chat free of charge, and we can talk about that later. So I've got quite a lot of things that I want to talk about. I'm really happy to answer questions, but probably better that we do that at the end. Otherwise, I will disrupt my flow, and also managing this technology, trying to see who's asking what question. Um, it's just a bit too much, a bit too complicated. So let's get started. And it would be helpful if I could move my slides forward. So the first thing that I want to say is that the whole menopause puzzle is complicated. So there are many different factors that can affect how you feel, what symptoms you'll experience. And it's a bit like a jigsaw puzzle. So out of all of the things on the screen, if you can see the screen, I'm just going to be focusing on food and maybe touching on exercise a little bit today, but there are so many other things that are important. I've put HRT in there because I know that that is key for many and has been a lifesaver for so many people. But it's also important to think about stress, alcohol, sleep, toxins, and keeping hydrated. Um, so also what I wanted to say that our hormones are ovarian hormones, so mainly estrogen and progesterone are the ones that you hear talked about. and they are complicated and they vary through our lifespan. And I think it's important to realize that hormones are not like petrol tanks that get emptied or lowered and just need topping up. And if you can see this diagram, you can see the circling, and we know about the cycling. We will experience the cycle, our cycling and our periods throughout our life. But when you get into perimenopause, so anything from the age of early 40s onwards, it may not be low estrogen initially. It could be all these, erratic spikes and dips that are causing symptoms. So, and that they are extremely complex. So then they don't just appear magically in your body. So the next screen that I'm showing is a bit scary, but it's important to and underpin some of the things I'm going to be saying, because I want you to understand that hormones are produced through a series of chemical processes in the body. One substance is created and converted to another substance, and you don't need to know this at all, but just to explain that, there are more than 50 hormones in the body, even though all we really think about and talk about is estrogen and progesterone, but they all work together like an orchestra, and so they have a knock-on effect on each other. So with all these thousands of chemical processes happening in the body every second, if there's an impact on one, and the food you're eating can impact some of the processes which we're going to talk about, then the rest will be impacted. So the first thing I want to talk about, and this is perhaps the most important thing to grasp and to focus on, is controlling the amount of carbohydrates that you eat. So we all know that sugar is not good for us. It has absolutely no nutritional value. But when you eat starches as well, so with starches, we're talking about rice, pasta, bread, chips, that is also broken down into what we call glucose or sugar and affects your blood sugar. And it's really dangerous to have glucose or sugar in your blood. And because it's so dangerous, when you eat sugars, or especially white carbs, refined starches, they're processed so quickly that when they hit your blood, your blood sugar spikes. And because this is dangerous, because it can lead to all sorts of conditions, like diabetes, heart disease, your body produces a hormone called insulin. And you may have heard of insulin in relation to diabetes, but insulin's job is to get that sugar, that glucose, out of your blood and into your cells where you can use it for energy. The problem is that when you are eating too many carbs, especially sugars and the white refined carbs, you can end up on something like this, which is the blood sugar roller coaster. So your blood sugar is spiking way out of range and then dipping, crashing way again below range. And everything in our bodies is finely tuned and needs to be kept within a narrow range. So if you can see this diagram, the green within the green range. And so these spikes and dips can cause and can contribute to many symptoms: mood swings, energy crashes, sugar cravings, depression, hunger. And not only that, but insulin is known as the fat storage hormone. So it's used to take the sugar or the glucose out of your blood and used for energy. And anything your body doesn't use gets stored away as fat. But you only need a tiny little bit of sugar or glucose in your blood at any one time. 1 teaspoon, really. So any more than that, you're potentially contributing to your symptoms and laying down fat. So if you're concerned about weight gain, then getting your blood sugar under control is really important. So that's the first major reason why I'm talking about blood sugar, insulin. And the second reason is that, unfortunately, when we getting into perimenopause, menopause, we naturally, and estrogen levels are lower, we naturally become more resistant to insulin. So even without changing anything in what we're eating, we're becoming more insulin resistant, which is one of the reasons why the tendency to put on weight and fat around menopause is so common. And then there's two more reasons why I'm talking about this. So insulin. So insulin, remember the complicated diagram I showed you about how hormones are made through complicated processes. So insulin also affects some of these processes. So too high insulin affects one of the proteins in your body. It's called sex hormone binding globulin. You don't need to know that. Just think about it as a bit like a bus. So it carries your hormones around your body so they can be used, taken to where they need to be used. And if you've got too high insulin, this protein is reduced. So you haven't got enough of the buses carrying the hormone around to where you need it, and you've got too high levels of free hormone in your blood. So that can lead to imbalances. And a lot of the symptoms that we or you or all of us may experience at menopause are caused by the differences in hormones, the differences between estrogen, progesterone. So that's another reason for managing your blood sugar levels and your insulin levels. And then the final way is that insulin also plays havoc with another enzyme called aromatase, which is also involved in the hormone conversion process. So testosterone, so when your hormones are being produced through all the chemical processes, testosterone is created before estrogen and then it's converted to estrogen. So again, insulin can increase the level of the enzyme that converts testosterone to estrogen, and means that you've got an imbalance, you've got too much, and all of these hormonal imbalances that you may have been experiencing or suffering from, throughout your life, starting with really painful, heavy periods or breast tenderness, all the hot flushes, night sweats, the normal menopause symptoms that we have been talking about, headaches, fatigue, low libido, acne, insomnia. The horrendous list is never ending. So what this actually means is that you need to restrict the amounts of sugars and the amount of white refined carbs that you're eating, and ideally switch the white refined starches to whole grain. So whole grain bread, whole grain rice, whole grain pasta. And to give you an idea of the diagram, the slide I'm showing you at the moment is showing you how some of the starches that you may not have been aware of break down into teaspoons of sugar in your blood. So we all know that, sugar's not healthy, that it can cause all manner of problems, but fewer people are aware of the starch turning into glucose, into sugar as well. So just from this diagram, you can see that basmati rice, for example, 150 grams of that will digest down into just over 10 teaspoons of sugar. So that is a big blood sugar hit. Bearing in mind, you only need 1 teaspoon at any one time circulating in your blood. You can see that, depending on what you're eating, then you might have blood sugar imbalance. So you really need to look at the portion sizes that you're eating, reduce them maybe. We're all different, so all of these things will work differently in different people. And for sure, switch to the whole grain versions that are not so refined. They've got more fiber in them. So I'll be coming on to talk more about fiber in a moment. They've got more fiber in them, so they don't affect your blood sugar in the same way. And also fruit. So we do think of fruit is healthy, and it does contain, a lot of vitamins, minerals, all sorts of good things, including fiber. Much better to have a banana than a donut. However, bananas and all the tropical fruits are quite high in starches and sugars, and they too will digest down into glucose or sugar. So it doesn't matter whether it's from a healthy source or a donut. As far as your body's concerned, it's sugar, it's glucose, it's going to affect your blood sugar. And this could be, if you're on the blood sugar roller coaster, this could be contributing to so many of your symptoms. And I've seen with who everybody I've worked with, the women that I've worked with, and also in my other work on diabetes prevention, just getting your blood sugar under control can really make a huge difference to everything. So, this diagram, if you can see it, is just showing what I've just shown from the blood sugar roller coaster. If you eat sugary foods, you get a big spike. If you eat white refined carbs, you get a medium spike, still out of range. But if you go for the whole grains, then you've got more stable blood sugar. They are lower release carbs. So this is what we're to aiming to this is how we're aiming to eat. And also note, because everything in our body is complicated, that stress affects your blood sugar, alcohol, caffeine, lack of sleep, they affect blood sugar levels too. Haven't really got time to go into that now, but obviously I'm happy to answer questions when I've done. So moving on, it's important to note though that if you are eating carbs, hopefully the whole grain versions, um, you need to make sure that you're eating protein and fat with the carbs, and this will slow down the spiking of your blood sugar and help you feel full. So that's the first pillar, manage your blood sugar. It can be a game changer for so many women. But the second pillar is also vital, and that's prioritize protein. And I see that most of us are not eating enough protein. And not only does it help you feel full, stay full for longer, and counteract the impact of sugars or starches, it's important because it provides the building blocks for your whole body, for your hormones, all the enzymes, everything we talked about, that I talked about in all the chemical processes, the building blocks for your bones, your skin, your muscles, everything, the repair of our cells, recovering from injury, our nails, and also it's essential for mental health as well. So if you're not eating enough protein, you might not feel energized, you might not have the right nutrients to create all the neurotransmitters, things like serotonin that can be contribute to feeling low, lethargic, distracted, motivated. So you need to eat protein at every meal and think about eating. So ideally in menopause, post-menopause, we should be eating at least 1 gram per kilogram of body weight, um, of our own body weight. And it's important to realize that not all proteins are made equal. So animal proteins in particular are complete in all 9 of the essential amino acids. So anything that's essential means that body can't make it, you have to take it in. So just being aware from this in this graphic that obviously 100 grams of clams will provide 48 grams or 48% protein. So protein isn't 100% of any particular food. And I've got tofu on this slide as well. Obviously, it's not an animal protein, but it is a complete protein. So if if you're vegetarian, you're not eating any animal proteins, then you need to really think about how you're going to get those essential amino acids. And tofu is a complete source of all of them. Vegetables, proteins tend to be incomplete, which means they'll have some of the amino acids, but not others. The exceptions in red, quinoa, and mushrooms, they're complete protein. So if you're vegetarian or vegan, you need to be even more careful about the proteins you're eating and the combinations to make sure that you are getting the right amount of amino acids um, that your body needs to feel good and to be strong and for all the repair processes and to make your hormones work and to feel full. And especially if you're reducing down the carbs, then protein is essential. And it's been shown that if you have protein, a lot of people don't eat protein at breakfast. We tend to be thinking about cereals and muffins and fruit juice and croissants. All of those things are just starches that will break down and affect your blood sugar. If you have protein earlier on in the day, you're less likely to feel hungry and feel like snacking and crave and want to eat more later in the day because your body needs those amino acids. So that's the second pillar. So blood sugar balance, vital, eating enough protein also can be a game changer. And just to give you an idea, if you don't want to do all the calculations about how many grams per kilogram of your body weight, think about trying to get 20 grams of protein at every meal. So what does that look like? 20 grams. So red meat, if you're eating a steak, it's not a huge steak, a chicken breast, eggs, for example. If they're small eggs, you might need three. If they're large eggs, you might need two. But just being aware of trying to think about what protein you're eating at each meal. Okay, the third pillar then, moving on swiftly, is don't fear fat. And so since the 80s, we've been demonizing fat in this country and, following the US. And we were taught that, fat makes us fat. And I see so many women avoiding fat like the plague because they think it makes them fat. Whereas in fact, as we've talked about with blood sugar balance, the blood sugar roller coaster, it's more likely to be the sugar and the starch that is, and the insulin that's being created that is laying down fat. So we really need fats. It's vital. They're vital for life. I mean, I'm talking about healthy fats here. I'm talking about extra virgin olive oil, avocados, nuts, seeds, and the omega-3 fatty acids in things like salmon. So don't fear fat. Fat is like protein. It helps buffer the blood sugar spikes from carbs and sugars, and it makes you feel full, like protein feels full, and it tastes good. And also, all your hormones are made from fat. All your hormones are made from cholesterol. It's vital for life. Your brain is 60% fat, so you need fat in your diet. And this also can be really important for symptoms like brain fog. If you've got dry skin, you're feeling tired, you've got aching joints, memory loss. Healthy fats we're talking about are nature's lubricant. And I mentioned the omega-3 essential fatty acids, and most of us are not getting enough of these. Ideally, we should be eating 2 to 3 portions of oily fish every week to get these essential fatty acids. And when I was talking about proteins, essential amino acids, anything that's essential means you have to eat it. Your body can't make it. So the oily fish, salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, herring, trout, try and eat 2 to 3 portions a week. There's also some omega-3s in chia seeds, walnuts, flax seeds, so non-fish sources, but they don't have the right kind of fatty acids, EPA, DHA, that are so vital, and especially for our brain, our memory, brain fog, health, and preventing dementia. So that's pillar 3. Fats to avoid, quick to mention about that. Fats to avoid are all the vegetable oils, all the seed oils, unless they've been cold pressed, made in a cold pressed mechanical way. So seed oils, I'm to think things like sunflower oil, rapeseed oil, all the seed oils are, if you saw the processing diagram that was involved in making them, it looks like a petrol refinery. And so some of those can be toxic. So definitely avoid margarine, vegetable oils, and trans fats. So the chemically altered fats that, are less around, less available now, but they tend to be more in the processed foods, the ultra processed foods, and the baked goods. So definitely avoid those. And we hear, just before I move on from fats, we hear that saturated fat is really, bad for us and it leads to heart disease and we need to avoid it. And we're told to avoid things like red meat. But I just wanted to point out before I move on that red meat is not full of saturated fat, despite what you hear all the time. So in piece of red meat, 100%, so 70% of it is watered, about 20% protein, 7% fat, and about 2%, 2.1% saturated fat. So it's not actually true. And good quality red meat is good for you. So how are we doing for time? Great. So the next pillar, pillar 4, feed your gut bugs. So the gut microbiome, the community of guts, not guts, sorry, the community of bugs, um, bugs, microbes, bacteria, virus, fungi that live all over us, all over our body. And the largest community is in our large intestine. And this has been linked to many health conditions. It's very popular to eat for our gut. But these gut bugs are vital for not just for good digestion, but they produce energy, they produce neurotransmitters, things like serotonin, the feel-good hormone. Um, and it's important that you're feeding the helpful gut bugs. So eating too many sugars and starches, not only does it affect your blood sugar balance, but it also feeds the unhelpful, or the, as the television ads call it, the unfriendly bacteria, causing you to have an imbalance and maybe too many of the unhelpful ones versus the helpful ones. Plus, in relation to hormone balance, to an unbalanced gut can also mean that some of the enzymes that are in your gut that are responsible for processing your estrogen when it's been used by your body and eliminating it through, through your urine, through your poo, that can get disrupted. That can be increased with too many of the bad bugs. So what can happen is your estrogen is started being processing, and it's been processed into a more toxic form, and then it's recycled around your body. So that can be contributing to symptoms too. So what you need to do to feed your gut bugs is obviously reduce the sugars, the starches, and eat a wide range of vegetables and fruit. Green, not just green leafy vegetables, although green leafy vegetables, particularly the cruciferous veg or the brassica family, so things like broccoli, cauliflower, kale, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, rocket watercress, they are hormone superfoods because they really support your liver that is involved in the processing and removal of your hormones, estrogen, progesterone, and the others when they've been used. So they can really support your liver. And so if you have a lot of symptoms, increase the amount of these green leafy veg. But really, we should be thinking about eating what we call across the rainbow. And, with the Zoe program and all the hype around that, you hear a lot of people now talking about trying to eat 30 different plant foods a week. So across the rainbow, because they all have different plant nutrients, polyphenols in them, all the different colors have different vitamins, minerals, and they have fiber. And fiber is something that's in all of these that most of us are not eating enough fiber. And fiber can't be digested by our digestive system. So it's passed through to your large intestine where most of these bugs are, or microbes rather, not bugs, microbes. And fiber is their food. So they feast on the fiber, which is why we need the fiber. And when they feast on the fiber, they're producing really healthy substances that help us feel good, contribute to hormonal balance. And so 30 different plant foods a week might sound like a lot, but if you consider that it also includes nuts, seeds, herbs, spices, and also legumes, things like lentils and kidney beans and all the different kinds of beans, it's not as unachievable as you might think, to have 30 different types a week. And so, the government talks about 5 a day. That's not really enough. It's a basic minimum. Most people aren't eating five a day, so at least 7 to 10. But think about how can you increase um, the amounts of fruits and veg that you're eating. Um, Things that are not good for your microbiome: stress, lack of sleep, alcohol, unfortunately. So if you think of your microbiome as your own little inner garden with beautiful flowers in it, you want a diverse range. You don't want too many weeds, but it's not just about the balance between flowers and weeds. It's also important to have diversity. So there's many different species of bacteria or bugs, and eating a wide range of different coloured fruits and veg, nuts, seeds, etc., and different kinds of fibre ensures that you've got the diversity to for good health, good digestion, good hormone health, um, and there are many, you can buy probiotic supplements, which are live cultures. You don't need to do that. You can get the same effect from eating fermented foods that contain the live bacteria. So things like natural yogurt, kefir that got live cultures in, aged cheese, even fermented vegetables like sauerkraut, kimchi, miso, and kombucha, like a fermented tea. So fermented foods are a really good way of supporting your gut and helping it to become healthier. Um, and what else? Antibiotics also wipe out large communities of gut microbes. So if you're taking antibiotics or you're on a course of antibiotics, think about it might be worth thinking about taking a probiotic supplement, but definitely thinking about the fermented foods. Um, Exercise is good for your everything, including your gut bacteria. Sleep is good for it too, and fasting. So moving on to pillar 5, closely related. Especially if you're not taking HRT, you can think about phytoestrogens. Phyto just means plant. So there are many plants that have a chemical structure similar to estrogen. So they mimic what estrogen does in the body, but very, very weakly. So they work with your estrogen receptors. And so they are quite magical because if you're suffering from maybe too high estrogen dominance, they can help lower estrogen levels. If your estrogen levels are too low, they can gently increase them as well. And they also help with all the other enzymes. I mentioned an enzyme called aromatase. I mentioned a protein called sex hormone binding globulin, the bus that carries your hormones around the body. And so these can be really helpful for regulating those as well and getting them in balance. And just to give you an idea of what the sources are, so a lot of plant foods contain phytoestrogens, but the highest density you'll find in flaxseed. So think milled flaxseed, soybeans, so things like tofu, um, edamame beans. So this gives you an idea of them. So you can also buy supplements of phytoestrogens. I'm not really going to talk about supplements today because it's such a personalized thing. It depends what you're doing, what symptoms you've got. So yeah, so phytoestrogens can be really helpful, especially if you eat them, whether you're taking HRT or not. Um, and soya, there's a controversy over soya because a lot of it is genetically modified. So I go for organic, the most organic natural forms of soya that you can, that hasn't been industrially grown, and that can be difficult to find. Um, so those are my 5 key pillars. I'm just going to touch on a few other areas that are really important, can be make a big difference to symptoms, and then I'm going to just ask, if open for questions. Um, so as I've already touched on, exercise is important. Exercise is good for everything. It's probably the single most important factor that you can do to help you feel good, not only mood wise, but help you age well. But it's important not to, especially if you're concerned about weight gain, you want to lose a few pounds, don't overdo the cardio because it can be extremely stressful on the body. And we need to be doing strength training. We need to be lifting weights, building muscle, to avoid the muscle loss that accompanies aging, especially post-menopause. And also having more muscle tone not only will help you age healthily, but it's also a sink for sugar and glucose, and it can change your body composition as well. So absolutely important to focus on exercise, but the right kinds. Relaxation, stress is a biggie. So stress makes every single menopause symptom worse. And there's not an easy answer to managing stress. It's finding something that works for you to help you unwind. Sleep, likewise, not enough sleep can make every single factor worse. Alcohol, I've talked about, can be a key driver of so many symptoms, particularly hot flushes. So many women that I've seen when they've given up or cut down on the alcohol, they notice that they don't have night sweats, they don't have hot flushes. So we become less able to process it as we get older. So something to think about. And toxins, which I'm not going to go into in a lot of detail, but all the toxins that we're exposed to in our water, in our personal care products, in shampoo, um, moisturizers, household cleaning products, they all make a difference. That everything we're exposed to is absorbed and needs to be processed through the body. So they can all make a difference to how you feel, how you're experiencing menopause. So that is what I wanted to cover. I've mainly been talking about my 5 key pillars of food, and touched on exercise. And I just wanted to um, talk about a couple of clients. So this is a quote from one of the ladies that I work with who was taking HRT, but she just couldn't lose weight and she had some symptoms. So she was one of the clients that had to reduce her HRT after she had changed what she was eating along the way, along the guidelines, the pillars that I've just been talking about. And, this is just something that I see all the time. When you get your nutrition right and you've got the basic environment in your body for your hormones to function properly, you can improve your energy, reduce your mood swings, reduce your brain fog, even get rid of your brain fog, and, start to get back to how you were feeling before. And another client that also had digestive issues and thyroid issues as well, feeling good. So that is it. That is all. I am going to stop talking now and ask if anybody has any questions. Please feel free to type them in the chat box or unmute and ask me.
Hi, Helen. Sorry,
Yeah.
it's Tracy. Can I ask about corn? Because you mentioned about tofu. Where
Yeah.
where do we stand with corn? Because I'm a vegetarian, so
Oh, okay.
I eat quite a lot of corn. So
Um,
how is that? Is that
it
not
is,
good?
well, I mean, it is quite highly processed.
Okay,
So,
okay.
so I haven't talked really about ultra processed foods at all, but there's a lot of media hype around, all the things and chemicals and additions and preservatives. And so the only thing I'll say about corn is because I've never tasted it, I've never tried it, but I think it is highly processed. So,
Okay.
as a vegetarian, it's trying to get, it's for all of us to be thinking about real food,
Mm,
whole food
yeah.
that, that doesn't have ingredients in it that you wouldn't have in your kitchen.
Okay. Okay.
And be
Well,
thinking about the other. Do you eat any animal proteins? Do you eat any eggs or?
I do eat eggs.
Oh,
Yes.
that's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cheese? Do you eat cheese?
Yes, but I'm trying to cut down because I might eat too much cheese.
Yeah, I know. You need to be careful with cheese, but
Yeah.
it is yummy, and
Yeah.
but it is a good source of calcium as well and protein. So yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
No, that is okay. So, Jazz, can I ask about sourdough, please? Is it just bad a carb as white bread? In terms of carb, yes. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, all bread is a carb. And the more whole grain you go, so I mean, a lot of sourdough is white, so that's just like white bread. But the more whole grain you go, the more fiber you've got in it. So it depends whether it's white or whole grain or rye, sourdough. But in terms of your blood sugar, it's still the same. So it's just, being careful and making sure if you're having some bread, you're making sure you've got protein with it and some veggies. So you've got some fiber, you've got some protein, you're buffering. So you're not spiking your blood sugar so much.
Thank you.
That's okay. Anybody else? What about corn pasta? Um, yeah, interesting. Corn pasta. I don't know about corn pasta. Corn. I mean, corn. Again, I think all of the pastas, because I know you can buy lentil pasta, you can buy pea pasta, which has more protein in it than, say, wheat pasta. So I think it's just, again, it's being careful about the amounts you're eating. And depending where the corn is grown, it could be genetically modified corn. So I'd be wary about that. But so yeah, so it's really up to you, depending on your diet. Gluten-free, a lot of the gluten-free products are highly processed, fall into the ultra-processed food category. So it's just being careful and minimizing the amount of starch for your blood sugar, but then making sure that you've got the protein and the veg and the healthy fats that make you feel full and help your hormones. Any other questions? Happy to answer anything, even if it's not hormone related. We still got time. I seem to whistle through everything I wanted to say. Could say so much more.
So, Helen, can I just ask about sleep?
Yes.
Because one thing I found is that I don't sleep as well as I used to, and I feel tired a lot.
Yeah.
Is there anything I can do about that, or sort of nutritionally wise? 'Cause a friend of mine told me to try eating tart cherries.
Oh yeah. Yes. Tart cherries, yes. They have melatonin in, and you can actually buy, special sleep formulations of supplements that have tart cherries in. Um, is it more a problem of going to sleep and staying asleep?
Staying asleep.
Yeah. Um, so for some people, when I talked about blood sugar balance and controlling your carbs, for some people, having an imbalanced blood sugar can be the factor that wakes them up. Because if you have a blood sugar dip in the night,
Mm.
your body will start producing stress hormones, cortisol, to raise your blood sugar. And so that might wake you up. And then you've got stress hormones circulating. So you might not be able to get back to sleep. Um, but there's so many factors. In fact, I've got a handout on 25 tips for getting a good night's sleep. I'm happy to send you if you'd like it.
Oh, that'd be brilliant. Thank you. Yeah.
Is that Pauline?
Yes. Yeah.
Pauline. Yeah. So yeah, there's so many things you can do, so many. But I agree, it's not, I know it's not easy. It's not an easy thing to manage.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Feel free to ask me anything. No? Got quite a few people saying thank you. Hope you found it interesting. Tracy. Tracy wants the sleep thing. Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, it's only 10 to 12, 10 to 1 even. So I'm going to finish. I'm going to stop recording now anyway. So thank you very much for joining. Thank you for watching. If you're watching afterwards, let me stop the record.